Be the Talk, episode 307, featuring Johnny Campbell. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Johnny Campbell. Johnny, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to go, sir. Ready to go.
Johnny Campbell is a speaker and past president of National Speaker Association for the state of Illinois. He's an accredited speaker, a designation given by Toastmasters International and held by only 75 professional speakers in the world. Based on Johnny's ability to help clients overcome and succeed, he is called the Transition Man. Johnny Campbell, welcome to the talk.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here, too, because your talk is called How an Enemy Can Improve Your Life. I love the opening. This is just classic, best in class. Walks out there, you start congratulating everyone, thanking everybody out there, and there's a particular group in the audience that you want to thank the most, your enemies. Take us behind the talk, Johnny.
Well, that was the exact idea right there. The premise was that a lot of times people forget how competition is a catalyst for improvement, but competition doesn't sound hard enough or direct enough. Enemies. When we have enemies in our lives, those enemies, which could be people, situations, or things, cause us to improve, cause us to get better, and actually cause us to have more success in our life. Because without an enemy, we would probably just sit around and be complacent and watch television and not do anything. But the idea that there is someone out there to get you, that's standing in your way, an obstacle preventing you, that's what gets you up in the morning without an alarm clock to take action. And that's what I was wanting to share, that idea on stage.
Well, I love that, sitting around watching television, because what is television but a bunch of manufactured plots of people versus themselves, people versus an opponent, people versus a philosophy or the environment. We're engaged in this one way or another.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you bring up some of the killer rivalries. I mean, we're about to see this right now at the time we're recording this. We're going to see LeBron take on Stephen Curry again, or Stephen Curry again in basketball. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, big rivalry right there. You bring all these things up, and you bring that really salient point that it really does, iron really does sharpen iron, and that can be in a friend or a foe situation. So why was this so important to you, Johnny, to talk about this talk instead of all the other things you could talk about?
Well, one thing, really the thing that I identified was I said, I want to share an idea that is a true catalyst for improvement. A lot of talks that I've heard people do and deliver, they are very inspiring and very noble and very moving. But I wanted to tell an idea. I wanted to share with people a real truth of this world, is that without an enemy, none of that other stuff happens. We all rage against something in order to improve. Whether it's and anyone that speaks on causes or initiatives, they're always talking about the thing that stands in our way. So my idea was the thing that stands in your way is the actual thing you should be grateful for. You should be thankful for, because that's the thing that has caused you to be who you are today. And I wanted to show people that this is a real thing that exists in our lives. But we normally do not talk about it. It's something we don't mention, we don't speak about, but it is truly the catalyst for our improvement, whether it's sports, whether it's in life, even politics. When you think about politics, it's always them and they, or it's something in the way. And we rage against that, and that's what garners the support the politicians receive. So I wanted to show everybody that if you don't have this thing in your life, you're probably not going to get to where you want to go in your life. You got to identify it, and you got to focus on it, to improve.
Well, and I love this. So this is really kind of a back door opening to the Stoicism philosophy, where there's a resistance, and when you embrace the existence of the resistance and celebrate the resistance and use the resistance as something that will benefit you and your cause and your mission, that will give you extra energy and power to succeed. Last week, in fact, interviewed multiple survivors of strokes and paralysis, and this is what it came to. They found meaning in realizing. It's very similar to Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. That whole work of a psychologist or a psychiatrist in a concentration camp. So much resistance, but we have the power to choose our response. So, what are your thoughts, Johnny?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. But I think what happens in the TEDx world is in a lot of places, people forget about this idea. And as I looked at many TEDx talks, I just kind of looked at and checked them out. I said, no one is really addressing this kind of idea with any kind of no one's really trying to push this idea as really what can drive people. And I saw a great opportunity to share this particular idea. And my goal is, and hope one day, is that technically people agree, but not everybody publicly agrees. But they technically agree with me. They won't say it out loud. They won't share my video. I just can't get any traction, but they know it's the truth what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, I like this this idea of kind of outing the enemy, embracing the enemy. This philosophy of Stoicism. I also like, it sounds a little reading between the lines. With your background, Johnny, frankly, you're the best of the best in terms of the National Speaker Association, a major, primary, speaking association for professional speakers out there, as well as Toastmasters. Only 75 people in the world. So I love, your perspective in really being at the top of both of those organizations, and then looking over and being a little bit able to constructively critique some of maybe the excesses of any particular branded talk, and maybe TED or TEDx in particular. So what other things, if I can get you kind of on record here a little bit, what are some of the things that could make it a little stronger when people are preparing their branded talk presentation, whether it's a TEDx or a TED or a Google Talk or an Idea City or a Q Ideas or any of these kinds of talks? What are some of the things, maybe from your perspective and perhaps from other people's perspective, what can we do to make it stronger in terms of the way that we sharpen it, so that it won't be rejected or kind of lumped in with other ideas?
Well, there's kind of two parts to this that I personally thought about. I said, first of all, I want to do a TEDx talk that has some legs on it after the TEDx talk that's congruent with me as a speaker, first and foremost. And that's the big thing. A lot of times, a lot of TEDx talks I've seen, they have did this TEDx talk, but it has no correlation to them as an individual who speaks for a living or who delivers talks. There's no correlation. I wrote a talk that showcased and correlates to what I talk about outside of TEDx, so that when people watch that video, they can see that this guy is a speaker on a topic similar to this in other spaces. A lot of times people just have these weird, far-reaching talks that have no correlation. Therefore, it's hard to leverage that talk into future speaking opportunities for themselves. So I encourage, and then finally, another part of this is, when I created my idea, I thought of myself as a prosecuting attorney. I said, I'm here to argue one side of a case. I am not here to argue other points and other issues. My whole focus is to argue why enemies improve your life. That's it. Now, are there other ways to improve your life? Yes, but that's not for me to fight today. I'm only arguing one side. And that's the tough part sometimes when you're creating these talks, is you want to go into these other little areas of conversation, and you cannot because you have such a limited time. So you have to pick a lane. Even if you can think of other ways to counter your argument, erase them from your mind. Just argue your position and position yourself that way. And that's what the audience will take away when they hear your talk.
Talk Universe, did you catch that? The top two things, and these are great, what Johnny just told us. Number one, when you're preparing your talk, when you're submitting your talk, when you're applying with a talk, make sure that that talk is going to reflect back on what you do professionally so that you can get some leverage and really utilize and exploit that talk for good all the way around. Number two, when certain talks, certainly, take that one angle and argue that thing all the way as far as it will go. Don't try to take every single perspective. Find that argument and argue it all the way. We've been enjoying this talk with Johnny Campbell. He is on the top of his game in both Toastmasters and the National Speakers Association. We've been talking about how his talk, which is entitled How an Enemy Can Improve Your Life, can be harnessed and utilized and put all of these really harvested for all of your benefit here today. And in a moment, we're going to be right back with Johnny in the Blitz Round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And we're back with Johnny Campbell, and it's time for the Blitz Round. Johnny, I'm going to ask you a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of your recent talk. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First off, were you selected to speak or did you apply?
Actually, both. I was selected and I applied.
So that sounds like when someone tells me that, I call that you were nominated to apply.
Yes, I was nominated to apply. I was approached and nominated to apply. And that's why I said both.
Both, yeah.
I didn't even know it existed. And then someone came to me and said, you should. And then I applied.
So that's fascinating. So so no knowledge of TED Talks or TEDx Talks? You'd never seen the videos?
I've seen the videos, but didn't understand the process behind it.
Yeah, and the local...
Didn't understand the process, didn't know where you get selected or who picks who and how or what. And one day someone approached me while I was coming off of a stage from speaking, and they brought the idea to me. And then I went through the process.
So, different question than I normally ask in the Blitz Round, but compared to Toastmasters, compared to National Speakers Association, what is different in your opinion? How would you describe the difference of a branded talk, in your case, a TEDx talk?
And the difference is that the TEDx talk is a much more focused talk, concentrated on one specific idea. The National Speakers Association is an organization that helps people build a speaking business, but also gain connections and relationships. And then Toastmasters is really an organization designed around communication and leadership. So it's a place where you can hone your presentation skills, develop better communication skills, and actually really learn how to craft messages that work. So it's for leadership and it's for communication.
Regardless of the organizational parts of that, there are certain types of talks that you prepare in Toastmasters, certain types of keynotes and other talks that you prepare for certification in National Speakers Association. Is there a difference in your mind between the way in which you prepared for this branded TEDx talk, or through that lens, are they more similar to you, Johnny?
They're all similar. They're all one and the same to me, because each one of those things operates independent, but actually works as a collective to make you a better presenter. Toastmasters is where I worked on my TEDx talk to craft it in such a way. And that's where I worked on so that I could do the TEDx talk. The National Speakers Association is just where professionals go to learn to build and grow their businesses, but also to have a better understanding of potentially marketplaces and groups of people that they want to speak to.
Great. And so, I mean, you're obviously very, very experienced speaker. For this talk, did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I created this talk from scratch. So it took me 90 days to prepare this talk. 60 days was writing. I repeat. I spent 60 days writing. I knew my ability to get on stage would work if I had the right structure. And a lot of speakers, whether they're speakers or TEDx, they don't think about structure. They think about, well, I'm going to have a conversation up there. No, you need to work on the structure of your talk so that you can have a great conversation and you can have a very natural flowing conversation. 60 days of writing, 30 days of rehearsal and practice to prepare myself. 90 days in total for 15 minutes of new, fresh content.
So, Johnny, besides the structure and the way that you went about structuring those 90 days, what's a tip, technique, or a tool that helped you besides?
Getting clear on your idea that you wanted to share. You must get clear on, and if you can't say your idea in a short phrase, then you really don't have a good idea. You have to be able to quantify your idea down to a simple phrase, how an enemy can improve your life. That was my simple phrase, and from that, I built the talk around it. So it wasn't outside in, it was inside out.
Johnny, what's an unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
The weirdest thing that happened to me was the guy that spoke before me only spoke for 5 minutes. I was still in the back getting mic'd up, and he was done. So it was a frantic rush to get me prepared because I thought he was going to talk longer.
That is exceptionally rare. Usually people take their 18-minute limit.
I know. He talked for 5 minutes, and I'm in the back like he went out on stage, and so then they give me the next headset. And they're standing there and they're looking around and we're all just kind of standing around, and he goes. And then the next thing you know, they're talking to me and they say, "Oh my God, he's done." They're clapping. And they're like rushing to get me all wired up because they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know he was done."
Johnny, was there like an MC or somebody that could jump in, or were you it?
It was just me. We were in a rotation and they were just introducing us one after the other. And I was looking around like, "Are you kidding me?" He was done. And I had to hurry up and get wired up and get my slides up there. Everything was just in a big rush to get me going.
We've been enjoying this talk with Johnny Campbell. His talk is called How an Enemy Can Improve Your Life, and you can watch that talk on our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com if you don't want to type it in to YouTube. You can also link in with Johnny Campbell, and we'll have a link to his profile there as well. And we'll be back with Johnny Campbell in just a moment for the final word of advice for Talk Universe. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with Johnny Campbell. What's your final word of advice for Talk Universe today?
The biggest thing, if you are preparing to do a TEDx talk, is to please practice and to write your content down. Write it out so that you can read it, say it out loud, rehearse, then start to rehearse it, and be intentional with your TEDx talk. Know that you want your TEDx talk to help you leverage, whether it's business opportunities, more speaking opportunities. Create a talk that has life after the talk. Do not create these talks that have no life afterwards. And I'm not saying that those talks that people do deliver aren't noble and majestic and universally helpful, but they're not going to help you because you might not go viral. You might not be that one, like, for example, Simon. His went viral. It was awesome, but we may not ever become viral. But I can say one thing for sure. I have booked more than 20 gigs, speaking gigs, because of my TEDx talk. It may never go viral, but it's been money in the bank because I was intentional about what I was writing about and what I was going to speak about when I got on stage so that there would be life after the talk.
Johnny Campbell, thanks so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe. Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.